Today on Fight the Cyber, we're talking about the Telegram founder and CEO Pavel Durov and why he was arrested and faces up to 20 years in prison right now in France. We're also going to touch on the BRICS nations and this upcoming summit they have in October and why it threatens the US dollar and what the US is doing about it that you probably have never even thought about. This and so much more. Stay tuned right now. What's up, everybody? It's Joey Vantes with Fight the Psyops. And the first thing I wanted to touch on today was Pavel Durov. For those of you who aren't aware, he is the founder and CEO of the app Telegram. This is a messaging app that is fully encrypted, fully secure, so you can send message back and forth to each other without anybody tapping into it. Not even the company can get into your messages or the details or data that you're sending back and forth. Now, it's great because it also provides an unlimited capacity for any size upload that you want to push, promote. People put together groups. I've even had groups that I've established as well to share news and information across the Telegram platform. And it's a great way because the truth be told, we now know the social media platforms are censoring free speech. So this is a way for us to share real, true information that the mainstream media outlets on the news and social media are not willing to share with the general public. And so it's a great way for us to get this information out far and wide. So if you recall, back in April of this year, Pavel Durov actually sat down in an interview with Tucker Carlson. And in this interview, he was telling Tucker that one of his web engineers was approached by the US intel communities. And they asked him, they said, listen, we want back-end access into your platform. And he said, hold on a second. Our platform is secure and fully encrypted for a reason. We do that to protect the privacy of our users and give them the ability to promote free speech, not be censored. So no, we're not going to do this for you. So the intel communities were very pissed off about it. They shared a bunch of other things. And ultimately, it seemed like that was the end of it. But we all know when you piss off the US government and when you call them out publicly, as he did in that April interview with Tucker, that wasn't going to be the end of it. So over the last couple days, he flew from where he was living into France. And mind you, without any warrants, without any notice, any information, or any pending legal charges whatsoever against him, as soon as he landed on the tarmac, they came in, picked him up, arrested him, labeled him with a number of charges, and said that he's now faces up to 20 years in a French prison. To give context, I want to share a clip of this interview from Tucker so you can hear how Pavel Durov describes this interaction with the US intel agencies. Watch this.
We get too much attention from the FBI, the security agencies, wherever we came to the US. So to give you an example, last time I was in the US, I brought an engineer that is working for Telegram, and there was an attempt to secretly hire my engineer behind my back by cybersecurity officers or agents, wherever they are called.
The US government tried to hire your engineer?
That's my understanding. That's what he told me.
To write code for them or to break into Telegram?
They were curious to learn which open source libraries are integrated to the Telegram's app, on the client side, and they were trying to persuade him to use certain open source tools that he would then integrate into the Telegram's code that, in my understanding, would serve as backdoors.
Would allow the US government to spy on people who use Telegram?
The US government, or maybe any other government, because a backdoor is a backdoor regardless of who is using it.
That's right.
And
that's a little surprising to hear. Maybe it's not surprising, it's offensive. You're confident that happened?
Yes. There is no reason for my engineer to make up the stories. Also because I personally experienced similar pressure in the US. Whenever I would go to the US, I would have two FBI agents greeting me at the airport, asking questions. One time I was having my breakfast at like 9 a.m. and the FBI showed up at my house that I was renting. And that was quite surprising. And I thought, we're getting too much attention here. It's probably not the best environment to run.
Why would had you committed a crime?
No. They were interested to learn more about Telegram, They knew I, left Russia. They knew what we were doing, but they wanted details. And my understanding is that they wanted to establish a relationship to, in a way, control Telegram better. I understand that they were doing their job. It's just that for us running a privacy-focused social media platform, that probably wasn't the best environment to be in. We want to be focused on what we do, not on government relations of that sort.
So after watching this and reviewing the details, could it be that NATO, right, France being a NATO country and the US also being part of that alliance, came together and utilized France as a proxy to go and pick up Pavel Durov and jail him for, some erroneous charges, making things up? And from what I've heard from a couple different sources, they said that the reason why they wanted back-end access into the Telegram platform is they believed that there was pornographic content that was being distributed across the platform. So his team had asked for evidence and details concerning who was doing this so they could go after the individual, right? They would never provide any details. They wouldn't provide any information. So they said, well, if you don't have evidence and you don't have details that you can provide me, then there's nothing that I can do. And so they were trying to utilize and leverage something against him in order to make him do this, which was a lie to begin with. And it's not to say that there probably isn't that type of content in many of these different spaces. You can just imagine what goes through Instagram, what goes through Facebook, X, all these other platforms. But needless to say, they couldn't provide him with hardline evidence or facts or even say, this is the person who made the complaint. Well, we need to go after this individual or this username. None of that was provided. So because they couldn't get that back-end access, did they use France as a proxy to go and pick this guy up, put him in prison, and now make him face up to 20 years, essentially making him a Julian Assange 2.0 because they couldn't get their way? And I leave that right there with you guys. You can drop your comments on that and let me know what you think about it. But this thought came to me. I wonder if this potentially is a part of the reason that this guy is now sitting behind bars facing this. And, you think about this, right? Like, it's commendable for a person like Julian Assange, or now in this case, like Pavel Durov, to say no to the government about something, right? We all know Julian Assange with WikiLeaks and what he shared out and why that went so big and they tried to stall it and they went after him the way they did. It's commendable to say no when you're in the public eye. But when you're picked up and you're put in a prison and they perform psychological operations against you, they start breaking you down, they start conducting interrogations and different methods and techniques to really destroy you, to isolate you from any type of contact. You're in maybe solitary confinement. How long is it that you can last in that place thinking about it, saying, you know what, the public's not thinking about me. I have no real knowledge if anybody's still supporting me or praying for me or thinking about me. My family's out there. If you got kids, my children are out there. I don't know where they are, what they're doing. Are they alive? Are they okay? I don't know anything. And you're in this solitary confinement. You're in this space isolated all alone. How long does it take to finally mentally break you down to the point where you give up and you give in? And that's the real question. How long is Pavel Durov going to last until he allows some type of back-end access or whatever the government's asking for? The reality is, this, I believe, has to do truly with free speech, with censorship, and ultimately with control. Because think about it. This government that we've been under, this coup, is not for the American people, is not for the promotion of our well-being, of our embetterment, of our increase in strength, in the lowering of our taxes and the inflation to bring that down. They're not worried about our health. They're not worried about our mental health, especially after COVID-19 and what they saw them pull on us. But instead, they're more focused on totalitarian control and censorship. It's literally 1984. It's literally Orwellian. And they want to control every aspect of life. And if they can't tap into this app, Telegram, to see what's being shared, what's being talked about, what's being pushed, and they can't stop it, that's a problem. That's a threat. News, information is getting out. Truth is being shared far and wide from different places around the world, real time, that they can't stop. And they do not want that to happen. So they will fight back at any cost necessary. And I bring this back around. I mentioned this a little bit ago. Kim Dotcom, for those of you who don't know, was the CEO and founder of Mega Upload. Kim Dotcom established this platform so people could take large file sizes, put it up, and share it across with different people and whatnot. People started using the platform to put up movies and music, the pirate stuff, right, that people typically were aware of back in the early 2000s and mid 2000s. And, even though all that had happened and there was some lawsuits and some pending things that were out there with some movie and media houses, even still, this guy was never arrested, never really sought after. They had created a rule to say, hey, listen, at the end of the day, we'll create this procedure and put this in place where if a movie goes up and you recognize it as a media house, contact us and we'll immediately take it down, no questions asked. And they were doing that. So there was really no problem moving forward. But Kim talks about this. He says, what took place is one day, I watched a mini documentary that was put out through regarding WikiLeaks and Julian Assange and what was really taking place and what they were uncovering in their space. So he decided, he believed so much in what they were doing and thought it was a great cause and that this stuff should be exposed, that he made a small donation to WikiLeaks and Julian Assange to further their efforts and movement. Once he did this, he said it was almost like days after that the FBI shows up at his property in New Zealand and they raid his mansion and say that he's going to be extradited to the US for crimes committed.
We turn now to the police raid on the Dotcom mansion. So much discussed for so many months, and now the footage of that morning has begun to emerge. But this is how that morning unfolded.
All call signs, all call signs. This is
6:47 a.m, the 20th of January this year, and the raid is underway.
copy.
A helicopter carrying members of the elite Special Tactics Group flies into the Coatesville home of Kim Dotcom.
Ground units from gates are open.
Dotcom's pregnant wife, their 3 children, some guests, and somewhere in the region of a dozen staff are also there. All is quiet below. Within seconds, 4 armed members of the Special Tactics Group run to the main door. The helicopter immediately leaves.
Hand lifting.
The main justification for using it at all, that Dotcom's security staff would have stopped police vehicles at the gates.
Forward.
But as the chopper flies out, the first ground forces are already arriving in that van, just seconds behind. And inside,
First of all, it wasn't unusual for me to hear helicopter noise because we were expecting guests to arrive, and it's usual that sometimes guests arrive early in the morning, especially if they come from the US and are being picked up by helicopter. So the noise from the helicopter wasn't really a surprise, but then I heard pinging of stones, of rocks to my bedroom window. My shields were down, so I couldn't see outside what was happening. And then shortly after, within a few seconds, I had a heavy banging on my door.
Gate. Guard from main gate reports changeover was 6 o'clock. Only 2 guards working, 1 at the main gate, 1 roaming.
the helicopter is circling above, not directly involved any longer. It was recording police comms, the sound of the raid as it unfolded.
Yeah, made entry into the bedroom of the target. The door was closed, slammed, and it had a security lock on it. We breached it. Moved through. He's done a runner. We can't find him in either the studio or the bedroom.
I was on my bed. Once the banging started, I pressed an alarm button that is situated right at my bed, that was installed in cases of emergency. When I pressed that, it automatically sends a signal to all security guards and Mr. Tempero's room, including SMSs to everybody, informing them that there is an alert. And I then stood up from the bed and made my way to the Red Room.
He was in this room here, which we call the Red Room. And the reason will be obvious in a moment when I open the door.
Wayne Tempero, Dotcom's head of security. This footage wasn't played to the court, it's from our interview in February. But what has been learnt in court is that despite knowing of the room's existence, having the plans, and the door to the room not being locked, it still took 13 minutes for the police to find Dotcom here.
I was sitting in front of that pillar in that room, and then I heard loud banging noises, and I was just scared and worried.
Meanwhile...
Yeah, Roger. Revised numbers in the garage on the top part. We have 5 Philippine females and 3 children.
The house is being closed down. Everyone present is being accounted for and contained. Everyone.
We have the 5 nannies plus his children up in the top of the garage. Roger that. Thank you.
By 7:10, armed officers are on the roof. Directly below them, Kim Dotcom has now been found and detained.
The upper levels over.
I thought, I better wait for them to come to me rather than me popping out of that secret door and maybe, scaring someone who might shoot me. So I waited in the Red Room. I knew the door wasn't locked. There was a button that I could have engaged to lock the door, but I haven't done that. And I waited in the room upstairs and waited for them to come. And once they came up the stairs, I had my hands like this. And then very quickly they approached me, and within 2 seconds they were there and all over me.
When you say all over you, just what happened?
Well, I had a punch into the face, I had boots kicking me down to the floor, I had a knee into the ribs, and then my hands were on the floor. One man was standing on my hand.
For the log, Mr. Dotcom has been shown the warrant to search the property. He acknowledges it.
7-11, 2 helicopters have been used.
I've got green light to utilise the dog.
Dogs are now being deployed. And you can now clearly see 1, 2, 3, 4 police vehicles. Police on the ground include the Armed Defenders Squad and the Special Tactics Group, who were armed with
a gun belt, which had my secondary weapon, a police-issue Glock pistol, on the right-hand side, and additional magazines on the left. And my primary weapon, which is a Colt Commando M4 5.56 weapon.
The implement shed and containers attached have been cleared. No persons located.
If it all seems slightly American, the FBI were there on the day and during the planning period leading up to it.
Were any FBI officers present at any stage in your dealings with this matter during the week of the, what was it, the 16th of January?
Yes, sir.
Also recording that day, this camera in a tree above the house. It recorded the STG officers from the second helicopter, 5 of them also armed with semi-automatic weapons. Their 4 colleagues are already inside the house. They run to join them. Moments later, a dog handler arrives. Outside, more dogs, more men, more guns, including figures entering up the hill in the background. The house is surrounded, and this is a significant show of force. But curiously, the officers are not dressed in full combat gear. If the house and its occupants were such a threat, why not?
We wanted to match the threat level, in this case a low threat, with our dress. And we made that conscious decision not to wear full tactical kit. It wasn't appropriate in these circumstances.
So why such a show of force? Paul Davison QC spent the day trying to get to the bottom of that question. Exchanges were sometimes testy. In one instance, around the treatment of Dotcom himself.
There was force applied
Question is, did you see anything that you took? No need to look at counsel. Just look at me and answer the question. Did you see anything done to Mr. Dotcom that was, to your mind, of a nature that was deliberate?
Yes, there was deliberate force applied.
But the larger issue remained less clearly answered. The Special Tactics Group, the Armed Defenders Squad, search warrants now declared illegal. What was behind such a large and pointed operation that morning? The police say...
Primary objective: secure suspect as soon as possible to prevent destruction of evidence.
But Dotcom replies he couldn't have destroyed evidence even if he wanted to, because the FBI had seized their servers before the raid.
You know, all of that is so invalid and really angers me, because you know that the FBI was already in the data center disabling access to the data that they feared we would manipulate. So prior to you arriving and doing what you did, there was no chance for anybody to do anything with that evidence.
Yes, Roger. Good to go with your last plan methodical clearance of the upper levels, over.
So, data already seized, threat risk low, and admission from within police ranks that the operation was, quote, over the top. What was it about, and why?
And as you're looking at this tweet on your screen, it's showing Kim Dotcom what he said. He said, it all started because I became a large donor to WikiLeaks after Julian revealed U.S. war crimes in the collateral murder video. And the moment I got out on bail, I created Mega, which was another platform, and sent the first $100,000 I made to WikiLeaks. I would do it all over again. F the criminal U.S. government. And right underneath, you can see the video being played there in the background. This is where it all started from. And then WikiLeaks just put up on August 15th, it said, New Zealand Justice Minister signs order to finally extradite Kim Dotcom founder of file sharing site Mega Upload to the U.S. U.S. authorities have been trying to extradite Kim for over 12 years. Process is likely to take years longer. And this is what's taking place. So the real thing is censorship of the truth of what's really gone on. And a lot of people are even speculating that maybe some of the WikiLeaks information, since Julian Assange was let out of prison and he finally went back, and I think he's now in Australia, what has taken place? What information did he really have backed up or saved that may be transferred through Kim Dotcom and then back through potentially into Telegram that's being distributed or shared to place some of those backups elsewhere? And this is just information that's being tossed out. It could be total hearsay and allegations, but the reality is we can clearly see a proven trail and track record and receipts on the U.S. government and their attempt and efforts to silence free speech, create total censorship, totalitarian control to shut people up. And I mean, let's take it even a step further. Kim Dotcom on an X Spaces last night with Mario, Minio Mario, I'll put the link up for him as well so you guys can check some of his stuff out because he has a lot of good information. He shared in an X Spaces that he feels like it even goes a step further than this. He talked about the wars that are currently taking place in different parts of the world. He talks about what's taking place in Ukraine, what's taking place in the Middle East, and what's taking place with Taiwan and even China. And he says what's really going on, in his opinion, is the fact that the BRICS nations, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and all the other countries who have combined with them, have decided to go against the US dollar. They said, you know what? Screw this inflated money printing system, this fiat currency that's debt-based, because the reality is you can continue to print and print and print all you want. You're not going to fix the problem by printing more money. You're going to go from inflation to hyperinflation, which is going to collapse the whole system. It can't last like this. So he began to talk about this and say, listen, the real problem is these other countries have finally woke up and said, here's a middle finger to the US money-based debt system that's fiat currency. It's fake, it's fabricated. We're no longer going to follow this procedure and utilize this as a means for any of our transactions. We're not going to use that currency as our reserve currency any further. We're not going to do it. And because they've made the decision to not comply, that's where the US has gone out and created these problems in these different places through their proxies, through Ukraine, who they're pumping money into to fund this and to continue this conflict going on there. In the Middle East, through the various instances of what we see with these other countries and the conflicts that's taking place there. And then also in Taiwan, what's happening between them and China. And there's a number of things that are transpiring across the world. And it just so happens to be that those countries where the conflict is coming up against are part of the BRICS entity, the BRICS community, which is a new currency system that is going to be backed completely different, not by the US dollar. And they're heated because control is slipping from their grip. And if these countries, which, by the way, they have a massive summit that's taking place in October, where it's said that even more countries are coming into place. Some key powerful countries are going to be joining the BRICS union. And when this happens and that power slips from the US dollar, the system will essentially collapse upon itself. And that will be the end of the US dollar. And listen, when we're talking about hyperinflation, we're not just talking about, money's going to, things are going to go up and increase just by a little bit. You're talking about buying a bag of bread, a loaf of bread for $50 to $75. We're talking about a total collapse. This is what we're talking about. And then we're talking about these digital currencies, these stable coins that go completely against what the US-based system is, and they will lose grip. So what they're saying in essence is, you're messing with our money, you're messing with our power and our prestige, you're messing with our goals and the things that we have in place to control the populations of the world. And because you're doing it, we are going to do whatever is necessary to eliminate you, even if it means the threat of nuclear war, even if it means sending our own military out there to go and die for nothing. We will do it in the name of control, in the name of totalitarian power, in the name of holding on to our debt-based system, which, by the way, has never worked. When they set up the first central bank, when America was established, that broke down. Then they set up the second, and then they set up the Federal Reserve System in 1913. What happened shortly after that? The Great Depression took place. We saw what took place in 2008. We saw what's taking place now. This is all meant to take place. It cannot stand. But this is how they control populations. This is how they control the world. Because if they can hit the four essential things, think about it. They can hit your food supply. They can hit your water. They can hit your shelter and your safety, the safety of you and your family. That essentially are the things, the pillars that hold everything up for society. If they can take those things away, and they've totally destroyed, and they can gain control over you because now you are fully and completely dependent upon the government. And that is the goal. Meaning that if you want to be fed, if you want to be safe, if you want to have clean water, and you want to have protection for you and your family, right? You want to have shelter and safety, you will have to comply. You will have to act this way. You will have to comply with the censorship measures. You will have to comply with DEI. You will have to comply with all the rules and standards we say that you must follow online. You must not speak out against this or have free speech. You cannot tell us what you are for or against. You will only repeat what we tell you to. And that's the way it works. So when Kim Dotcom gave this information and shared this info out, it just made so much sense. And I'm going to leave this here for you guys because I'm not going to throw my opinions upon you. That's why we're all about free speech. That's why we are Fight the PsyOps, because we are fighting against these psychological operations that seek to control and destroy. And the only way we do that is if we discuss these things together. So I want you guys down in the comment sections, drop your comments. Let me know what you think about this. Give your insight and your take on this. Share this out to everybody far and wide, because people need to know this information. They need to know what's really going on. And we only have a very limited time to wake people up before this thing is completely taken down. Now, we're coming inside of 70 some days into the election, guys. Things are heating up, and we don't know what's going to happen here. We're hearing of different events that are going to transpire. Even after, if President Trump were to get elected again, you still have a number of days before he would actually take office. What's going to happen then? Listen, guys, we know that the U.S. government has already funded Moderna $176 million to create this new bird flu vaccine. We know that there's this new bird flu summit that's coming in October as well, where the main topic they're discussing is mass fatality management planning. Like, what does that even mean? Do they know something that's coming, or are they predicting what they're going to do before it actually happens? Probably. But again, you don't have to be scared if you're prepared. And that's why the wellness company has provided these contagion emergency kits. And I think every single one of you should have at least one of these in your home. Life-saving drugs like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, Z-Pak, budesonide, a nebulizer, right, so you can breathe properly. All of this comes packed in this kit. And every family should have one. It's like having an urgent care in the comfort of your home when you actually need it. So look, I don't want you to wait till they're all gone. I want you to act right now. These are backed by Dr. Peter McCullough, and you get a prescription for this. So this is how it works. You go to the website that you're going to see down below, twc.health/Joey. You're going to enter in a couple pieces of information. This kit is going to get shipped to your front door. And when you use code Joey, you're going to save $30 off, and you're going to get free shipping as well. Don't wait. Act now. Again, twc.health/Joey. Okay. Code Joey saves you $30 off, and you get free shipping. Go do it right now. Share this out. And guys, get ready. Prepare your family, and Godspeed to all of you. Until next time, continue to fight those psyops.